This is Glambition Radio, episode number 250 with Meaghan Murphy, author of Your Fully Charged Life.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. This past year and current times bring with it, we almost don't need to say it, it's obvious, a lot of external circumstances that were beyond our control. But the great thing about this that really woke us up in many ways is realizing how much we did have control over that we weren't paying attention to. And that's from the inside out. And that includes the life we're creating around us and for us and in us. And that's why today's guest is really a perfect time as you're really trying to be positive for this year, trying to think out of the box a bit and, kind of do a check-in in how we can make this so extraordinary and so enjoyable. And, you may have fallen into some bad habits over the last year. I know I did. A little bit of lack of self-care and, things like that. So when I was introduced to Meaghan Murphy from my client, Tanya Dalton, and her book, Your Fully Charged Life, I was like, this is a great time. Let's get her on. This will lighten things up a bit. So Meaghan's actually the content director of Women's Day magazine. It's been around a long time. It's the #1 selling publication on newsstands and has been very successful, long publishing career. A lot of the magazines you would know, and I kind of remember evolving with, Self magazine, YM, if you remember YM, which used to be Young Miss. She helped launch Teen People, and then she even turned around Good Housekeeping along the way. Really interesting career. So now's her time. Now's her time to get her advice out there. And you may have already seen her on TV. She's on shows like Kelly and Ryan, Today, GMA, all the time. But this is really her first chance to truly use her voice and share her story. So we're excited to have her on the show today. First, I'm going to share 2 quick reviews today that my team pulled for me from Apple Podcast. Thank you. The first is from the Family Nest Project. The headline says, "One day I will. Allie, I've discovered you about a year ago, and now you're pretty much the only podcast I listen to. The stories you share truly make me believe anything is possible. Your guests are real, genuine, and their honesty is inspiring to me. One day I will be a client of Allie Brown's, mark my word, in the beginning of building my dreams, and with Allie and her guests by my side, I'll keep reaching for the stars." I love that. Thank you. And the next is Tiffany Rees, so encouraging for businesswomen and moms. As a working mom, it's hard to feel like you can balance it all and actually be successful in business life at all times. This podcast gives awesome stories, testimonies, and action items to help encourage you and let you know that it can be done. Women can make money and be the boss while being the boss of their homes as well. Thank you so much for the encouragement, tips, and support. I love that review. Thank you. And when I read the boss part, it made me chuckle because this is actually a conversation we have pretty often in the trust with the members. And remember, these are women who have reached the 7, 8-figure marks. And, a lot of the conversation is around the business, but there will always, always, always be this need. Someone starts it and then the conversation starts and we dive in about, how do we balance being a great mom and having a strong, solid family. And these are not models that have existed for us. We have no models to emulate. So when I'm speaking and on stage or in those types of situations, by the way, I never get upset being asked that question. I know there are some female leaders who don't like it because they say, the guys don't get asked this. But here's my feeling on it. There's a reason we're still asking. There's a reason we still need to know the answers. And that's why it's fantastic to have a group of women who are truly peers in the same type of situation where many of them, their husbands not only work with them, but work for them, really, or some of them are stay-at-home dads. I mean, you have all kinds of situations there, and this is new. So there's not only the task of like getting it done, right? And living your life and running the household, but how do you keep your marriage strong? How do you keep that beautiful dynamic between the husband and wife? And there's so many layers to this. That's why it's conversation upon conversation that we are creating these together and supporting these together. So I love all these questions. I love the reviews that you leave. Just please, love hearing from you. And the reviews mean so, so much to me, especially at Apple Podcasts, because it does help our algorithm. It boosts the show, helps new women discover this conversation, and they may be listening to some shows that just aren't stimulating enough for them. So from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate every little minute you take leaving those. And coming up later this spring, we will be doing another beautiful journal giveaway to every one of you in the United States who left us a review. Stay tuned for details. And if you were interested in the trust, you can learn more at jointhetrust.org. And I'm so excited to see my members in Miami in person. Most of the group is coming. I said, listen, I'm going to host this. I'm going to be there. If you're game, if you're ready to see people, show up. And I'm just tickled pink that the majority of the women are joining us. Many are bringing the families. We're bringing the kids, and then we're going to tack on some time in the Keys and take a little beach time. Kids want to see a manatee. We have a little list of things like that. We're very, very excited. Now, this is going to be a really fun conversation, and I think you're going to love this woman. So get ready, take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with Meaghan Murphy. Meaghan, I would like to know where you are right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am in Westfield, aka Bestfield, New Jersey, where I reside as the Chief Spirit Officer. And I'm in my new home office that I never knew I needed or wanted. But thank you, pandemic, I now have my own little space in the house with a door.
See? Get selfish. Get selfish.
I'm so lucky. It closes, and in theory, no one can bother me when it's locked.
No, I love it. And in full disclosure, I hope you don't mind if I share, but like, this is one of those days that like, I'm so delighted when I hear other women having to just go out to their kids, be like, everyone, I'm on an interview. Okay. So you got to cork it or get out or just, figure it out. This has been the year.
Yeah, right. I'm like, this is where I'm at work, guys. Like, I need you to be quiet on the set, AKA the living room.
Does this count as a fully charged life with this stuff kind of happening?
Oh my goodness. I don't think my life has ever been more fully charged, which is kind of amazing and exciting all at once.
I have so many questions to ask you. I want to start with the book and kind of back up from there, if that's okay. I'm so curious, especially with all the books coming out lately. I always want to ask the author, were you working on this book before 2020? Or did the idea come about during, did it change during the lockdowns and shutdowns and pandemia madness?
Yeah. So I've been working on this book long before the pandemic. And I mean, I actually say it's probably, been 20 years in the making, really hardcore the past 3 years. And it was due, and I finished it in April. And so the pandemic did force me to do a few rewrites. The Recharge chapter is all about resilience. And moving through grief and loss. And in that moment, in April, as I was finishing it, I felt like the world was collectively mourning so many things: our freedom, our health, life as we knew it, our jobs, loved ones. So I kind of, reworked the entry point to that resilience chapter. I mean, all the strategies and tips and tricks and science remain the same, but some of the anecdotes and the science put into practice changed a little bit. I mean, I was furiously doing rewrites at the 11th hour because the world changed so dramatically. Yeah,
I was just wondering if you felt the tone had changed, or was there ever a moment you even thought, you know what, maybe this isn't the right time to come out with this?
Probably the exact opposite. I felt like, can we get it out sooner? So your fully charged life is a radically simple approach to having endless energy and filling every day with yay. And during hard times is exactly when you need this book. I just battled COVID myself, the entire family, my 3 kids, my husband, my mom, my 7-year-old mother. And then once again, I got to use fully every strategy, tip, and trick in this book to move through hard times. That's what this book does. It's a toolkit for navigating life with optimism and joy. I don't think we've ever needed that more. I've used myself as a guinea pig for the past 25 years to figure out the secret sauce. And I'm overjoyed to share it because I know that tomorrow could be more awesome for someone. And one of these strategies is going to do the trick. It's going to flip the switch. This isn't a life overhaul. These are simple ideas that can have a really big impact. And I rely on them so heavily. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert. I'm a service journalist of 25 years who has had access to the best research, the best scientists, and figured out what those studies look like in real life, how they can actually be news anyone can use, and how on a Tuesday you can use this positive psychology strategy or neuroscience to actually impact Wednesday.
Yeah. I know I vacillate between, there's feelings sometimes of this, like, gosh, I'm caring so much about what's going on outside the door and feeling like that's more important. Then you realize, though, you have to bring it back to yourself. You have to keep bringing it back to yourself. And what can I control? This is at least my journey. What can I feel positive about today? What are the things that are outside my control? Give us a few tips along these lines for when have you felt the same way? Like if you pay attention to news too much, or you are focusing on what we're not allowed to do, that we could really vacillate. How do you pull it back together?
Absolutely. Well, first, I always say I don't want to live in a do not world. And even when I'm editing the magazine, I tell my editors and my writers, let's tell people what to do, not what not to do. I think we have this inherently strong negativity bias that pulls us toward the crap. And that news cycle can drown you. And all of the bad news getting thrown at you again and again and again can really be suffocating. But we can prioritize positivity to soften the edges of all that bad and to start to make the good more obvious and more glaring. Because the thing about living fully charged is that you have to absolutely recognize the hard things, the things that stink. And you have to take a moment and treat yourself with grace to acknowledge all of that. And then you have to move forward. And the only way to move forward and to get unstuck is to just do it. I mean, there's a reason Nike made boatloads of money on this slogan. You have to just do it. You have to do one thing, take one positive action to move the needle and to begin to get unstuck. Realizing that you deserve happiness and that tomorrow could be happier. I always say it's not about looking on the bright side, but looking on all the sides, recognizing what's happening, accepting what's happening, but then choosing to move forward. Researchers call it prioritizing positivity.
Was there anything that during your research for the book, I know you did a lot.
Ton.
Was there anything that surprised you?
It all of it surprised me because frankly, I lived this for about 20 years and then backtracked and said, why does this suddenly work for me? I rewired my brain, frankly. I grew up with a nickname Grumpy, and I was like a miserable little kid. I didn't want to go to Disney World because it'd be hot and there'd be lines. I was definitely going to lose my soccer game. Like everything sucked. And, and I had, a middle-class suburban happy upbringing for the most part until some rocky teen years. But like my inherent negativity bias was so strong. Ultimately, through lots of hardship and self-reflection and therapy and road testing tips and tricks and strategies on myself, I changed those neural pathways. I now automatically see the good, and it's not that hard, but it took training the same way I've trained my abs or my biceps. I retrained my brain.
We all have to, man, I wake up and default to what's wrong. It's just something
most people do.
Yeah. And I had to acknowledge it too, because I always just felt like I'm a positive person. I always see the bright side. And I've shared before on my show that 2020 was a wild ride for me, just emotionally, psychologically. I had not realized I was slipping. I was slipping into just defaulting and waking up at 2 a.m., worrying about my kids' education and their future. And and so making the mindful practice of it, which seems kind of, in the past, I'd be like, why do you even have to do that? You should just be that way. But man, it's a practice, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it's a practice that gets easier with time. I mean, I like to think about it this way. I brush my teeth. I don't like to brush my teeth, but I don't hem and haw and deliberate and angst about brushing my teeth. It's a healthy habit that I've adopted with repetition. And thinking the positive thought is very similar, right? Once you think the positive thought, realize that you get a little jolt from that it softens the negative, and you do it again and again and again. It just builds to that. So it's reflexive and it's a habit the same way brushing your teeth might be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, who angsts about brushing your teeth? You just do it. Doing positivity, prioritizing positivity, living in a more positive, fully charged way can become automatic. It's a good habit you can adopt.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back on your career, actually, I'd love to hear a bit about your career in journalism, getting into publishing. Did you know when you were young that would be, I always just thought that would be such a glamorous, incredible career because I loved writing. That was my background. I loved writing. I loved writing articles. I loved researching things. I loved design. Like, I remember when I was actually probably about 10 years old, I made myself like a sample magazine. I clipped out pictures and did little articles. And then I've always loved print and publishing. Did you dream about this, as apparently I'm admitting I had for years, or did you find your way into it?
I kind of find my way into most things. And that's because I chase excitement and live with passion, I think. But I had those rocky teen years I was referring to. I was anorexic. My best friend and I were tandem. I called it tandem anorexics because we basically fed each other's eating disorders, for lack of a better term. We exercised for 9 hours together, took laxative, did whatever. I ultimately passed out and was hospitalized. Her parents saw what was happening and were going to admit her into the hospital in the same program that I was. And sadly, tragically, she jumped out of the car en route to the hospital and died. And this was my 16-year-old self. So now I'm struggling with this eating disorder, hospitalized, in and out 3 times, dealing with the guilt of what could I have said differently? How could I have gotten her here without this tragic ending? Just awful. I moved out of my house, ultimately finished my senior year in a different town living with my aunt and uncle. But I always had a gift for writing. And I wrote an essay about the experience and moving through adversity. And I wound up being named a Horatio Alger National Scholar and was honored on a TV special with Bob Costas and Don Johnson, and Trisha Yearwood performed. And it was kind of a big deal. And I got a lot of local and national attention by virtue of that. And YM Magazine called me and they wanted to profile me.
I remember YM. I loved YM. Well, I remember when it was Young Miss.
It went from Young Miss to Young and Modern to Your Magazine. I think the name changed, it evolved.
Yeah.
Because the Y and the M could really be anything, I guess. But I wound up, they wanted to write my story. I said, well, I'd love to tell my story, but I want to write it myself. And can I be an intern? Yes. And ultimately that internship led to a contributing editor gig when I was like 19. And I was working in magazines, going to school at Rutgers University, studying acting. And then, so my career sort of was springboarded from this crap experience that I was brave enough to write about. And I always find in life, a lot of my, there's the silver linings in many bad experiences, they propel me forward in some way. And, so that launched my magazine career. And from there, I went on to be one of the founders of Teen People. And from there, in my single years, I went on to be a senior editor at Cosmo. From there, I went during my self-formative years, I like to say, to Self Magazine, where I was the deputy and fitness director. And that's where I got married, had 3 kids. And then just as I'm about to move to the suburbs, I moved on to Good Housekeeping magazine as the executive editor.
Followed your personal trajectory. From self to Good Housekeeping. Sorry.
Exactly. Oh, and then just at the height of the pandemic, I took over as editor-in-chief of Women's Day and sort of reimagined that magazine as destination celebration, and looking at that magazine as a way to find joy and to celebrate every day. And that's something I talk about in the book, in the work charge chapter, is really like when your passion, your purpose are, aligned, good things happen. And so for me, I was always very clear on my purpose and very clear on my passion. And I think it's no accident that my career trajectory absolutely mirrors my life trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just, I mean, you can't make that up going from self to.
No, I mean, it's so weird, right? Well, even Cosmo, I was single. I was in my 20s and I was single, like teens. I was a teen. When I was editing Teen YM and launching Teen People, I mean, I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
Then super early 20s. I was also did a stint on MTV. I was an on-air personality on MTV. And I have a degree in theater and acting. So I did do commercials and all the things, which is why I do so much television now. So you'll see me on Today Show or Live with Kelly and Ryan because I use that acting degree to be able to tell stories on television.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, like Ryan Seacrest is the new Dick Clark, isn't he?
I adore him. I mean, he is a hardworking dude. I say to him every time I'm on the show with him, like, I feel like I'm an American Idol contestant and he's just cheering me on. Like, he wants you to do well. Like, he's here for you. Like, he's lovely to work with.
He seems like an actual really good guy.
I mean, I've probably been on the show with him 10, 15 times, and every experience has been lovely, even during the pandemic when I was, Skyping in from my backyard, or now that I'm back in the studio. He's been very generous and, lovely to work with.
Yeah. So tell me, especially your current position and Good Housekeeping. I want to ask some business and
Sure.
marketing questions, because most of our listeners are entrepreneurial. They're entrepreneurial women. They're running businesses or perhaps ready to start one. I'm fascinated with how you can come into a brand like Good Housekeeping, right? Which has been around forever. I mean, that good old, I think they still have the seal on products even, right?
Absolutely,
The Good Housekeeping seal. I remember, my mom's still like, I remember I had a beauty product or something. She goes, oh, it has the Good Housekeeping seal. I'm like, geez, is that still here? Right. So how do you come into a brand like that? And I know you had a lot of work to do to kind of reimagine the brand. And then let's talk about what you've done at Women's Day, like coming into an existing brand, and how do you relate it to today's reader?
So let's start with Women's Day magazine. When I took over at Women's Day magazine, the assignment was pretty vague. Reimagine and re-energize the brand. Okay,
Really?
well, what does that look like?
They left it open for you.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, right? And I had already done 6 years at Good Housekeeping, where our mission with Jane Francisco was really to dust it off.
Okay.
And really understand what I think what I do as a brand builder is really, I think of myself sort of as an expert problem solver. And I think about what problems do I have that I would want help with, and how can I then solve them for other people? Because if I have the same problems, other people have them too. And at the height of the pandemic, I mean, I started the job. I didn't even move out of my Good Housekeeping office. We just went on lockdown and I had to have my computer sent home. I've never even been in the same room with should I pause and count my team? My
No,
kids
I love this.
Quiet?
It makes
Okay.
it more real.
Okay, good. Thank you. They're definitely beating each other up. I have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 7. So I've never even met my team in person. Like, we did the whole thing from my kitchen table, on Skype and Zoom and phone calls and all the things.
Wow.
Which actually was kind of a gift because, there's so much freedom in that. Well, okay, if I get it wrong, I'll just blame it on the pandemic, right? I mean, it was a global pandemic. That's why it sucks. But really, I just sort of charged into it as this fun challenge of like, I can make this anything I want. What does the world need right now? Well, let me start with what I think I need and what my family needs. And that was a little bit of yay every day. And I was finishing the book. So obviously my research in positive psychology was obviously informing how I was going to do the magazine job as well. And as I've shown, like, my career path always mirrors my life path. And in that moment, what I needed was the new Women's Day that I created. It was a destination celebration, no party, no holiday left behind from Taco Tuesday to Christmas, a party on every page, an excuse to celebrate lives and find joy. And that's exactly what we did. I changed up the logo. I made a fruit rainbow in someone's garage that they, probably shot on an iPhone for the first cover. And it really just is this joyful celebration, what I thought the world needed right now. And I think that anytime you're looking at brand building, it's what do people come to you for? What do you think people need from you? So how do you give that to them?
Yeah. I love that. That's a great way to look at it, because you knew there were other women who were thinking the same thing and needed to see something we need those things. We need celebrations. We need new ideas for things to do with our family, and remember what's important. And
here's the thing, so what do people come to you for? I think that any entrepreneur should ask themselves that. For me, what do people come to me for? Positive energy. I know that my mission is to leave a legacy of positive energy. Yeah, you get to do that with the book. How do I do that with the magazine? That's my secret sauce. That's what people come to me for. So let me package that. Let me market that. Let me make that, accessible to all.
Yeah.
Maybe for somebody else, like what is the thing that people come to you for? And that's the thing you need to deliver. That's the thing I think you'll be best at.
There was something you wrote in the book that I loved. I wanted to ask you about. It was it's okay to feel yucky on the yay bus. And I love this because it's something I feel like I would say it was something I would say to my twins, right? Who are going to be turning 8 in May. And, it's been a great year. It's been a hard year, but also an amazing year with them because we've had these incredible conversations. So I'd love to hear what you mean by that.
Well, I think there's this idea that like you have to be relentlessly happy all the time or you're not happy. There are going to be days where you feel like crap. And that's when you're really going to have to rely on your toolkit to pick yourself back up and understand what makes you happy. But like, I'm not happy all the time. I have bad days and bad moods and crummy interactions that I need to rebound from. I have losses and I have wins, as do all of us. So it's okay to acknowledge that, like, it's not yay all day, right? Like, it's not always smooth sailing. And sometimes you need those rocky patches to appreciate the good anyway.
I mean, it's just unavoidable.
Yeah. But it's also, it doesn't have to sink the ship. Like, one bad decision, one bad move, one bad day, like that doesn't mean, okay, no, now you can't have happiness. The thing I like to remind people is that in order to be happy, you need to do happy. There's always something you can do to move the happiness needle. Big picture happiness is not a state of being, it's a state of doing. And so no matter what you're going through, understand that there's always something you can do to move the happiness needle.
What's an example of something you do with your family that moves the happiness needle?
Oh, there's endless things. And I sort of break it down, but like, today is Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. We holiday hard at my house. We have come up with national days and reasons to celebrate, to inject some joy in every day. We need things to anticipate. We need things to look forward to. We need things to party behind, right? Taco Tuesday has literally it's escalated to insane proportions where we have matching t-shirts and like 6 garlands and string lights. I mean, it's like off the chain, but that brings that little moment of joy and injects some joy into a Tuesday. It gives us something to look forward to. There are individual things that I know when I move my body and I protect my sleep, I feel better. I'm more fully charged. I know that when I say no more often so that I can say yes to what matters, I'm happier, right? So it's the book is going to be a toolkit for you to understand and identify what those things are for you. And they're different for everybody. It could be as simple as, buying yourself flowers, because there's some really awesome research out of Harvard that says fresh cut flowers ease anxiety. Maybe that's your secret sauce. Like you go to the grocery store and get the $1.99 carnations, cut them short and tight, throw them in a mason jar with a ribbon and call it a happy day.
Voila.
There's endless tips like this. And the key is cultivating the ones that work for you. Like there's no formula for happiness. I give you a toolkit. And it's up to you to determine what tools you need to create your own happiness.
So Meaghan, tell everybody where to get the book, where they can follow you, where are you active online? And then I'll ask my final question.
Sure. No problem. So I love to shop small, shop local. Of course, Your Fully Charged Life is available wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the things. But, I always say a real person does a happy dance when you shop local. So if you want to hit up your local bookstore, Your Fully Charged Life should be on the shelves. You can follow my journey at Meaghan B. Murphy on Instagram, a little extra with MEAGHAN B. Murphy, all the letters. And Woman's Day Magazine, very proud of the work we're doing there. You can subscribe and get it in your mailbox.
Okay, great. So Meaghan, all the women listening around the world, are there 3 pieces of advice you'd like to leave them with?
Okay. I think number 1 is prioritize positivity. Understand that it's a muscle you have to flex. Choose to prioritize positivity every day. Adopt an attitude of gratitude. I think gratitude is clearly the secret sauce in life. And I give lots of tips and tricks for cultivating gratitude and, getting a gratitude adjustment. I'll point out things like, keeping a gratitude diary didn't work for me. It felt like homework. I create a yay list and I asked myself what made me say yay every day to practice gratitude. And gratitude is the cure for everything, including FOMO. Yay. Mm-hmm. And then I would say, something from the love charge that I think is really important is that sometimes we only think about these big, giant relationships in our lives, our spouses, our kids, our, siblings, our mother-in-law. But think about the cashier, think about the barista, think about the train conductor, and think about how you interact with those so-called, research calls them weak ties. You have the ability to impact their mood and your own simply by smizing behind that mask, giving a compliment, practicing kindness. And that good energy really could be the only thing that's contagious down the line.
Yeah. It's needed now. I'll tell you that. If you take a moment these days, everyone's just got their, they got the real mask on, but they've got that, this facade on now, or just, they're very closed. But if you try to make eye contact, smile, say good morning, or thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for working today here.
It matters.
All those little things. It really does.
It really matters. And it can, and you'll see, that simple moment of humanity, recognizing someone's humanity is what I like to think about it as. Really, it's powerful. Mm-hmm. And it's powerful, and it can change the course of your day and theirs. And it's not hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't forget that. Meaghan, thank you so much for joining us today. And especially on the day that we had a Mercury retrograde moment. I'm glad the kids were quiet. Tell them they did a pretty good job.
Mercury and Gatorade, drink up.
Yeah, and enjoy. Apparently, the festivities are about to begin for Taco Tuesday.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, today it's like it's like a Fat Tuesday, Taco Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay, so over the top. I love it. I love it. Jeez, I can barely order tacos. Look at you. All right. We love it. Meaghan, we're going to pick up the book. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be following you online.
Thank you so much. Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.